Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Terrence Irving, the Connecticut wedding photographer who's always trying to help you out with planning your wedding. So you're planning your big day and you're closing in on choosing your wedding photographer. This is a super important decision for you because as far as wedding vendors go, your photographer is the one who's there to help preserve that day so that you can relive it whenever you want. One of the important decisions you'll need to make is, do you need one photographer or two? So in this video, I'm going to talk about whether or not you need a second photographer for your wedding day. Let's get into it. So what is a second photographer? A second photographer or second shooter is someone that's hired as an independent contractor by your main wedding photographer. Basically, the sequence goes like this. You hire a photographer, you choose a package. If that package includes a second photographer, they, your wedding photographer, book that second photographer. So in other words, it's important to note that you don't have to go and find a second photographer for your own wedding. This is part of the reason why you should hire a wedding photographer that you trust, who's going to deliver the quality both in photographs and in service. You don't choose a second photographer, you trust your wedding photographer to do that. The second photographer that your wedding photographer hires is an extension of their business. If you like metaphors, then I'd put it like this. When you go to a nice restaurant, the chef is running the kitchen, you count on them to deliver this delicious meal to you. You don't choose the sous chef. The chef, the main chef, is making sure that the sous chef is living up to everyone's expectations in the restaurant and the kitchen. You don't have to worry about the second photographer, just like you don't have to worry about the sous chef at a nice restaurant. Another thing you might want to know is, what does a second photographer do during your wedding day? This one's easy. They pretty much do whatever the main photographer tells them to do. So if we take an average wedding day, which I'll call 8 hours of coverage, the second photographer will start the day with one partner's getting ready pictures, while the main photographer starts the day with the other partner's getting ready pictures. That's a basic factor that most people understand when they're planning their weddings. Another important thing that a second photographer does for the main photographer is they enable the main photographer to basically have the ability to take risk throughout the day. So you also might be thinking, what value does a second photographer bring to my wedding day? Well, one thing you're getting is basically insurance. Things happen during wedding days. They're exciting, they're hectic, they're sometimes stressful. Your main photographer could twist an ankle. The security of having a second photographer there with them means that they have brought somebody who's trusted to step up in those moments where stepping up is necessary. Another thing to think about is, I like to take a lot of creative risks during weddings. Taking pictures that cause people to say, wow, those take some time to set up, they take some time to plan out, and they involve risk. But if my couple books one of my packages that includes a second photographer, that allows me as the main photographer to take more of those risks. So while I'm off doing something creative and fancy or whatever, the second photographer can be getting the safe shots, we'll call them. Another thing you'll notice on your wedding day is that it's all about the little things. Having your main photographer bring a second photographer with them means that there's one more person on your side. Something as small as grabbing the bouquet, or helping you fix your tie, or grabbing you some water. Those little things make all the difference on your wedding day. Lastly, another point of value with having a second photographer in your package, you typically get more photographs. Now, I don't want you to look at this as a guarantee. Some photographers just shoot during a wedding, while others are very selective with the photographs they're taking and editing and delivering. But generally speaking, with my own weddings and with a lot of my friends who are wedding photographers, the wedding days that involved a second photographer result in more photographs to deliver to the couple, generally speaking. So in this batch, you're seeing stuff that I've taken as the main photographer, while my second photographer has taken the safer picture. You're also seeing examples of photographs I've taken as a second photographer. You'll notice that in my case, there are a lot of, we'll call them secondary partners in my pictures. Usually the main photographer sticks with the main partner, and the second photographer goes with the secondary partner. If you care about the creative aspect of your wedding photography, then definitely consider booking a package with a second photographer, because this is what enables your main photographer, the actual studio that you booked, to create that creative stuff for you and take those risks for you that made you kind of ooh and ah when you looked at their Instagram and their website. So how do you decide whether or not to book a wedding photography package including two photographers? My best advice to you, and I think it's pretty universal, is as you're narrowing down your wedding photographer choice, basically use this issue as an interview question for prospective wedding photographers. You can come right out and say during a phone call or a video call or an in-person meeting, hey, we're trying to decide between booking you as our only photographer or booking one of your packages that includes two photographers. What do you recommend? Just prepare to tell them what you want, what your vision is, what you care about, what you don't care about, and basically count on them to tell you during the the interview process what they think about having just themselves or themselves plus a second photographer. One thing to keep in mind is that there are wedding photographers out there who only work alone and who only work with a second photographer. Myself and many like me do either or. And we offer packages that are just ourselves or ourselves plus a second photographer. Not all wedding photographers are the same. We're not all cut from the same cloth. We don't all have the same capability. We don't all do things the same way. So one photographer recommending heavily that you book a package with a second photographer is not necessarily directly comparable to another wedding photographer saying, hey, I can shoot your wedding by myself. There are many different variables and factors that might go into one wedding photographer recommending one thing and another wedding photographer recommending another. It really does come down to choose your wedding photographer. Choose that person that you want and you trust to shoot your wedding day in the way that you're looking for. Then get into the issue of, do we book just them or do we book them with a second photographer as well? And I'll leave you with one last tidbit. Booking a wedding package with a second photographer, again, should be a decision about quality, not quantity. Make the decision that's right for the two of you. And also, trust your wedding photographer to help you make that decision. I truly hope this video helps you in your wedding planning and your wedding photography hunt. Please subscribe, like the video, check out my website, check out my Instagram if you're looking for more helpful wedding tips, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again.